What's up, guys? My name is Drew Camden, and today I'm gonna learn you something. Today I'm gonna talk to you about antenna mounting strategies and my preferences on this because I use Spectrum, and for Spectrum I found that it's very important to have your antennas oriented in a good way, meaning 90 degrees to each other if you have diversity, right? So you have a good antenna orientation no matter how you're flying, and also that they be in good health, that they're not nicked, bent, damaged in any way. So they also have to be protected. And I've tried a few different things, and I want to share with you my thoughts on some of the things that I've tried. Now, most commonly, what I would do here with this like 3D printed piece on the back of my frames, it's like the ComDoc by MQC. It's got both an SMA mounting hole for my video transmitter antenna, as well as these protrusions that the antennas stick out of, and then you can insert your antenna. If I can do it, get on there we go. Insert your antenna tubes onto that. Now, that's really nice because it does a great job of protecting your antennas, and it does a great job of holding them in good orientation. Now, this still isn't ideal because ideally the two diversity antennas should be 90 degrees to each other, and this is more of like a 45-degree situation. What I have done in the past when I've cared enough to do it is heat up the antenna tube with lighter, and then you can actually like bend it down like that, and then do the same to the top, and then you would end up with something closer to 90 degrees. But even with the antennas being at 45 degrees to each other, it's always done really well in terms of performance. I've always had great performance with Spectrum as long as I have respected the fact that the antennas need to be oriented well and in good health. Now, I know some of the other protocols out there, like FreeSky, they're a little bit more resilient to those things, and so for a lot of mini quad pilots, that seems to be a better option because they don't have to worry about it as much. And since I do like to crash, maybe it's something that I should consider, but I don't know. I just love my Spectrum radios, so I'm willing to put in the extra effort. What I'm doing here to my antenna tube is I'm putting a little bit of heat shrink near the base. Can you see that all right? A little bit of heat shrink near the base of the antenna tube. Cool down. Now what that does is it prevents the antenna tube from over inserting into this 3D printed piece, because on a crash you could have the antenna tube get pushed in past the wall, and then it could actually come into contact with your gear, and you know, if it's hitting it, it could damage it. So by having a little bit of heat shrink at the bottom, you can push and it's not gonna insert in the same way, and it also makes it a little bit more durable from breaking at the base. And so that leads me to my complaint about this method, is that the antenna tubes are like a hard plastic, and so they do break sometimes. Now, it seems to be pretty well durable in warmer conditions. There's a little bit of flex to this, so you'll crash and nothing bad will really happen, and then, you know, maybe I'll just have a handful of pre-cut tubes in my bag, and if one does break, I can pull it out and stick in a new one. However, as I've been flying in colder conditions, I found that they are a little bit more prone to breaking because the material gets stiffer and more brittle in the colder weather. So I've been breaking a lot of tubes, and when they break, sometimes the antenna gets damaged. So I was thinking about other ways that you could mount your antennas. So this isn't the only thing I've done. Something else that I've done, well, here, let me grab this one first. So this is the Schizo quad that John built me, and when I got it from him, this is how he had the antennas done. And this is a really common method that people use. They will take a zip tie and line it up with the rear standoff, and then put the antenna they will put the antenna along the zip tie, and then you can use heat shrink to secure the zip tie to the standoff, and then more heat shrink to secure the antenna to the zip tie, if that makes sense. Can you see this okay? I know it's black, and you have a pretty good idea of what's going on there. So you can see the base of the zip tie down here, so that prevents it from getting pulled up through the heat shrink. And this, it's pretty durable. It's pretty durable. And in the case of this specific frame, the way that the top plate pushes down on the zip ties, it does kind of splay them out. So you end up having, you know, somewhat, maybe not exactly 90, but pretty good orientation. Now, I've had other cases like this guy. And this build isn't finished. This build has been cursed. The antennas are both sticking up. It might as well not be diversity, so maybe I could like heat up the plastic of the zip tie and try to bend them down and keep them more splayed out to each other to get that really good orientation. However, because this specifically is a 3-inch build, I'm not going to be flying that far. So this is a pretty good method of mounting your antennas that a lot of people use. Something else that I've seen that also involves zip ties and heat shrink is this, where you put a zip tie around the arms, put your antenna along the zip tie again, and secure it with heat shrink. This seems to be pretty durable because it's hard to like get, if you crash, and like, you're not gonna like necessarily get in there unless you hit something like this. So your antennas are pretty well protected. However, my personal luck with this method has been that sometimes the loop along the bottom of the arm, that gets hit by something and then it breaks and then the antenna is hanging. So I just personally haven't had really good luck with mounting the antennas like this in terms of durability, but this is what Jeff does and he swears by it and it works really well for him. So this might work for you. Another complaint that I do have about this is while the antennas are held at nearly a perfect 90 degrees to each other, they're kind of within the arms. So it's easy for your quad to be oriented in the air, you know, if you're doing some sort of maneuver, such that the antennas are blocked by the carbon fiber toward you. So this hasn't proven for me on Spectrum to be the most robust method in terms of signal strength. Things like this where the antennas are up and away from the carbon. I mean, the active element is probably like here and here, so it's really away from the carbon fiber, away from that interference. So this does great. And having them out the back has done really the best for me. Maybe these two are about tied. So either one of these are kind of my preferred method, where it's coming out the back in like a 3D printed mount or on the rear zip ties. I leave this one like this because I just don't fly this one too far. I just know that, okay, the antennas are like this and I'm just gonna do some flippy floppy acro around the trees near me, and I'm not going to do any long range missions with or medium range missions with the antennas like this. So the last thing I wanted to bring up is something new, because I really do like the 3D printed piece that it can hold your components, and it gives you a good place for your video transmitter antenna that has flex because you use a soft material in the 3D printed piece, so it's durable there and it holds your antennas in the right direction. The only problem with that is that in cold weather, the antenna tubes are less durable. So what I've started doing is inserting a zip tie through the piece that is meant for the antenna tube and then heat shrinking it to hold the antenna to the zip tie. And this is seeming to be one of the most durable solutions I've tried. There's lots of play. You know, you can't, see, one thing, this is something I do hate about heat shrink, is it can pull off sometimes. So this just started to pull off because I was really being rough with it. I'm just gonna stick it back on there. I could probably heat it up a little bit more, or maybe use a smaller gauge heat shrink to begin with. Yeah, you don't want that. That's something that's always turned me off of heat shrink, but antenna tubes can pull off just the same. So antennas are kind of a pain to get them mounted correctly, especially because it is so important. But these are some of the methods that I've used, and I guess just think about, oh, I have a phone call coming in. I guess this is the end of this video. Hey guys, so sorry the main part of this video got cut short, but just to kind of wrap this up, here is a close-up of installing zip ties and heat shrink in place of antenna tubes in the antenna tubes holder. I'm not exactly sure which of these methods is necessarily best or even what my favorite one is. I used to prefer using antenna tubes because when using zip ties and heat shrink, you need to have zip ties, heat shrink, and a lighter and a cutter, whereas with using antenna tubes, you just need antenna tubes and a cutter. But then I started using heat shrink on them anyway, so it just got all, I don't know what's best. I think doing the zip ties and heat shrink like I'm showing here might be my favorite, or just doing zip ties and heat shrink attached to some standoffs might be the best. But either way, I just wanted to show you a bunch of different methods that I've played with to get you thinking about different ways that you can mount your antennas, because having good antenna orientation and protection is very important with flying these things. So hope this was helpful, and happy flying.